Good
ರಿಜಿಸ್ಟರ್
afternoon,
ಬರೆದಿದ್ದೀರಾ?
everyone.
ಸರಿ
VC
ಆಯ್ತು
will be
ಇವಾಗ.
joining in few minutes, sir.
ಹಾಂ, ಸರಿ ಆಯ್ತಾ
We,
ಇನ್ನು? ಅಲ್ಲ, ಲಾಗಿನ್ ಕರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಆಯ್ತು ಇವಾಗ? ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಿಲ್ಲ. ಓಕೆ, ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಅಲ್ಲೇ ಇದ್ಬಿಡ್ರಿ ಚೂರು. ಹಾಂ, ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ನನ್ನ ರೂಮಿಗೆ ಬನ್ನಿ, ಆಮೇಲೆ ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಇಲ್ಲ ನೋಡ್ಬೋದು ನೀವು. ಹಾಂ, ಓಕೆ. ಹಾಂ, ಓಕೆ.
VC will be joining in few minutes, sir. Good afternoon, all. The VC will be joining in few minutes. So let's start with the event. Uh, To begin with, I wish to submit my humble most pranams to that great visionary, His Holiness Lingaikya Jagadguru Dr. Sri Sri Rajendra Mahaswamigadawaru, and I pay my sincere pranams to and seek the blessings of His Holiness Sri Shivaratri Deshikendras Mahaswamigadawaru, the President of JSS Mahavidyapita. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Nityashree Bharadwajan, the Student Coordinator of Institutions Innovation Council, IIC-JSSSTU. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome our dignitaries, Dr. Vilas V. Karjini, the Vice Chancellor of JSSSTU, Dr. Honnegowda, the President of IIC, our Chief Guest, Professor M Shivaprasad, Dr. Rupa S., Convener of IIC, HODs of various departments, faculties, the coordinators, and all the participants who have joined us for celebrating National Education Day under IIC Important Day celebration activities. Let me take 2 minutes to tell about the IIC. Institutions Innovation Council is the brainchild of the Ministry of Education, formerly known as MHRD, which has established an innovation cell. In the year 2018, the Ministry of Education, through the MOE's Innovation Cell, launched the Institutions Innovation Council program in collaboration with AICTE for higher educational institutions to systematically foster the culture of innovation and startup ecosystem in education institutions. The primary mandate of IIC is to encourage, inspire, and nurture young brains to think innovatively. IIC aims to provide exposure to what the best of brains can think of on various dynamic issues of society. Primarily, IIC's role is to engage a large number of faculty, students, and staff in various innovation and entrepreneurship related activities such as ideation, problem solving, proof of concept development, design thinking, IPR, project handling, and management of pre incubation stage so that the innovation and entrepreneurship ecosystem gets established and stabilized in HEIs. The major focus of IIC is to create a vibrant local innovation ecosystem. Startup supporting mechanism in higher education institutes and prepare institute for Atal ranking of institutions on innovation achievements framework. Establish function ecosystem for scouting ideas and pre-incubation ideas. And also develop better cognitive ability for technology students. IIC-JSSSTU organizes several programs like hackathons, ideathons, entrepreneurial talks, and various other innovation and entrepreneurship related activities. With this brief introduction about IIC, now I would like to request the President of IIC-JSSSTU, Dr. Honne Gowda to welcome the gathering and introduce the first speaker, our Honorable Vice Chancellor. Over to you, sir. Sir.
I submit my humble pranams to His Holiness Sri Shivaratri Deshikendra Mahaswamiji and seek the blessings of His Holiness. Good afternoon to each one of you. As a president of the Institution Innovation Council of the JSSSTU, I am pleased to welcome the distinguished speakers and all the participants for the National Education Day 2021. Every year, since 2008, November 11 is celebrated as the National Education Day to mark the birth anniversary of India's first education minister, Abdul Kalam Gulam Muhyiddin, fondly known as Maulana Abdul Kalam Azad. He served as the first education minister of India, independent India from 1947 to 1958. He was posthumously honored with Bharata Ratna in 1992. Apart from holding the rank of India's education minister, Abdul Kalam Azad donned many hats of being a journalist, freedom fighter, politician, and educationist. He was responsible for shaping the modern education system of the country. The first IIC, IIT, the School of Planning and Architecture, and the University Grants Commission were established under his tenure as the education minister. The most prominent cultural literacy academies were also built, including the Sangeet Natak Academy, Lalit Kala Academy, Sahitya Academy, as well as the Indian Council for Cultural Relations. Due to unavoidable reasons and delay in starting of this year academic year, National Education Day is being celebrated after a gap of 20 days. Nevertheless, our students have taken the initiation to celebrate this important day, and I take this occasion to appreciate and thank all of them for their spirit. Now, I am profoundly delighted to take an opportunity to introduce our Honorable Vice Chancellor of JSSSTU, Professor Vijay Vilas Kajini, who will be delivering his talk on national education policy in this program. Our Honorable Vice Chancellor is an eminent educationist with an excellent commitment to serve academic programs. Professor Vijay Vilas Karjini is a well accomplished academician cum administrator known for his exceptional leadership quality and vision. Before joining JSSSTU, he has served in various engineering colleges in the state of Karnataka as well as in Maharashtra. He is also the recipient of many awards and honors for his exemplary services in education. He has guided number of PhD students in the field of engineering. He is also a member of many national and international professional bodies. I am glad to mention that our Vice Chancellor has been the peer team member for more than 20 institutions as well as advisor for the NAC. And also he has advised the NBA for more than 40 institutions in the country. Our Honorable Vice Chancellor has always been a guiding spirit for all our programs and activities. Sir, we take the great honor to welcome you to deliver the talk on national education policy. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Professor Honegowda. Let me make it clear. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you
Yes,
are
sir.
audible.
Yes, sir, you are
Okay,
audible.
okay. Before starting my presentation and talk, let me submit my humble pranams to His Holiness Sri Shivaratri Deshikendra Mahaswamiji, Sutturu, respected eminent scientist, Professor Shivaprasad, my colleague Dr. Honegowda, Dr. Rupa Madam, as well as Nityashree and other organizing committee members. At the outset, I would like to congratulate Institute Innovation Cell for having taken this initiative of organizing National Education Day, and you have selected very emerging topic that's on NEP New Education Policy of 2020. New education policy. Before I begin my talk, let me share a few of the slides. Just a minute, I'll just trying to. Professor Onegoda, sharing, I should make slide or what it is? Slightly it is different. Your computer, okay, I have selected, but it is saying
Yes.
upload the file.
Rupa madam?
Sir?
Sir, your slide
Sir,
was
Sandhya
visible
is
few
not there.
minutes ago.
Pardon, just a minute. I
So
think
few minutes
now
ago it was visible.
just see, now I opened the file.
Yes, sir, we can see.
Sir, it is visible, sir. Your slides are visible now.
Visible, just a minute. I have to make it full screen PowerPoint presentation. I'm just trying to do. Is it visible full screen?
Yes, sir, it
Yes,
is
sir.
visible.
Slide screen mode.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So evolution of education policies in India especially started after we got our independence. That is, first University Education Commission was constituted in the year 48-49. Then after a gap of 4-5 years, Secondary Education Commission was constituted, and they gave the modus operandi how the teaching learning should happen, which level, and all those things. After that, another education commission was constituted under the chairmanship of Dr. D.S. Kothari in the year 64. They took around 2-3 years to prepare the compendium, and then it was presented to government, and then it was implemented in the form of National Policy on Education in 1968. 42nd constitutional amendment was done in the year 1976, that is education in concurrent list. So then again, National Policy on Education NP was implemented in the year 1986. Again, this was modified in the year 1992. That is called Program Action of 1992. Then TSR Subramaniam Committee report was taken in the year 2016. Again, the present government of India constituted a committee on 31st May 2019 under the chairmanship of Honorable Dr. K. Kasturirangan, and then he was the key person in formulation of New Education Policy 2020. The consultation process started. They took many stakeholders' involvement, like they floated online opinion from the citizens of India, as well as they moved around 2.5 lakh gram panchayats. They visited around 6,600 blocks, all those things. Then draft NEP 2019 summary in 22 languages and in the audio form was prepared. Education dialogues with MPs was held of Andhra Pradesh, Kerala, Telangana, Tamil Nadu, Puducherry, and Karnataka and Odisha. Special meeting of CABE was conducted on 21st 9 2019. Parliamentary Standing Committee on Human Resource Development was constituted in the year 2019. Then it was, of course, made functional. The major reforms in higher education suggested in this NEP are, I would like to highlight some of them. They want to reach a GER of gross enrollment ratio of 50% by 2035. It's a good initiative because there is a mismatch of near 100% literacy in Kerala, whereas 20% literacy in some of the backward states. So they want to achieve overall GER of 50% by 2025. The whole higher education system was taken in a holistic and multidisciplinary education form with majority of things on flexibility model. The first one important thing in this is multiple entry and multiple exit facilities. Like a student can enroll soon after his 12th level, present 12th level, to any of the program. If he can complete 1 year of the course, he would be given a certificate for completion. For one or the reason, he can discontinue for his health condition or social condition or economic condition. He can rejoin after 2-3 years, complete subsequent years, and get either UG program, PG program, all those things. So UG programs have been devised from 3 or 4 years. PG programs and 3-4 also. If it is 3-year program, it will be a plain vanilla like BCA, BSc, BBA, and all. If it is a 4-year program, it will come with honors tag, wherein a little bit of value addition, validated programs imbibed in the curriculum, and then you would be awarded a degree. The PG program would be of 1 year or 2 years based on the certification of PG diploma or master's program. Then integrated 5-year bachelor's and master's program is also floated, wherein a student can get into a graduation, complete 5 years of program, end up with master's program. It is like sandwich course. Then MPhil is going to be discontinued in this whole gamut. One of the greatest thing is credit transfer happens here. And they have also floated academic bank of credits. Like a student earning few credits in Bangalore University can come to Mysore, enroll in JSS Science and Technology University, Mysuru, and get his credits earned at Bangalore University transferred to our university, and then continue his education, get awarded a degree or diploma or in a postgraduate program from JSSTU. So higher education institutions are to be not mere teaching institutions. They should have research intensive, teaching intensive universities and autonomous degree granting colleges. So they are promoting these institutions, higher education institutions, from affiliated system to become autonomous and then universities in the near future, so that a lot of academic autonomy, a lot of financial autonomy, administrative autonomy is given to these institutions. Model multidisciplinary education and research university. Meru, they want to establish in or near every district. One in every district is the plan of establishing Meru. Again, they also would like to give graded autonomy, like, first academic autonomy, then administrative and financial autonomy, so that they want to rate also these institutions at the end of the day, so that there will be a healthy competition and institution act as a quality higher education institutions. Also, Government of India would like to phase out the affiliation system in the next 15 years of time. And National Mission on Mentoring is also on the board in this Higher Education Policy NEP 2020. They would have an independent board of governors wherein a lot of people from academics as well as industry can come together and guide the institution in reaching the next level of excellence. There would be a single regulator for education, excluding legal and medical. Time being, they have excluded legal, that is the law and medicine, from the single regulatory authority. Like, today we have UGC in place to grant autonomy and university status. We have AICT in place for giving permission to the institutions of technical in nature. We have Pharmacy Council of India to give permission to run pharmacy education. So the Architecture Council is there to give permission to architecture colleges. They want to bring all these regulatory authorities under one umbrella and make it single regulatory, which would, accelerate the growth of the university or institution, and they can do good amount of research in a more open door, more interdisciplinary manner. That is the main motto of this single regulatory authority. One line on online self-disclosure based transparent system for approvals in place of inspections. There won't be any human inspections happening, on-site inspection happening to these campuses, but whatever self-disclosure is done by these universities and institutions, government is going to grant the approval things, which is happening at present on behalf of AICT New Delhi. Common norms for public and private higher education institutions. So they would be given common platform, common norms, common rules and regulations for both public and private institutions. Private philanthropic partnership is encouraged, like any of the organizations like Wipro, Tata, Infosys can join hands, come on their CSR initiative and start the institutions of excellences. Fee fixation within the broad regulatory framework. So everybody will be empowered, financial autonomy, but again, fee should not be exorbitantly charged. So there will be fixing norms for the in the form of fee regulatory authority, which would be headed by a retired High Court judge and something like that. Public investment in education sector to reach 6% of GDP at the earliest. So they want to enhance the present investment of GDP of 2.5%. They want to take it up to 6%. Also, good thing is Professor Honnegowda should appreciate they are floating a body called National Research Foundation (NRF), which would be giving a lot of encouragement towards research and development, consulting, and collaboration initiatives. So this is one good thing where right now the grant is given by either DST or by notionally UGC or to some extent by ICT. This is going to be now by a separate entity which would be having funding from Ministry of Education, and then that is going to support in a robust way the research culture in these institutions. Also, internationalization of education is on the card. So, liberally, they will allow us to collaborate with foreign universities, and foreign universities can have MOUs with Indian universities, and students from foreign can come to India for their education, further educations by the way of credit transfers, and our students can also move to abroad universities for completing their degrees under these international program. Integration of occasional, teacher, and professional education. This is one good move, wherein the Ministry of Education is going to float some of the programs on the basis of BVOC, wherein Bachelor of Vocational Course, Master of Vocational Course are floated, and also teachers are going to be trained exhaustively under this NEP 2020. And professional education is going to be given greatest boost to meet the industry needs this. Then again, there is one initiative which is to be appreciated, that is new quality HIs has been made easier. Setting up of new quality institutions has been made very, very easy. Standalone institutions and professional education will evolve into multidisciplinary institutions. That means degree offering institution as well as technical degree offering institutions, they can come under one umbrella, they can talk each other, they can act each other, they can come out with good number of projects and proposals. So a science college can be a feeder mode for biotechnology program or instrumentation program for engineering. These kinds of multidisciplinary avenues are opening up. Special education zone for disadvantages region, like already there are few states do not have good number of institutions, or northeast is deprived of these kind of education, so there ought to be a special education zone, like we have special economic zone for industries, and that is going to boost and enhance the GR in those regions. National Institute of Pali, National Institute of Persian and Prakrit are on card. National Education Technology Forum is one thing which is going to be floated. And finally, the MHRDC, which was earlier MHRDC, is to be renamed by Ministry of Education, which already has been done. So NEP 2020 document, which is released by our Honorable Prime Minister in the presence of Kasturi Rangan and his team, has 4 parts in place. Part 1 talks about school education, which earlier it was 10 plus 2. Now it is 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4. That is for an age group of 3 to 18 years. So 5 years, initial 5 years would be foundation course kind of thing. Then 3 years would be a preparatory kind of thing. Then another 3 years would be mid-education, and rest of the 4 years would be secondary education. Also, before I continue my presentation, I will just give what is part 2, part 3, part 4 consist in this NEP 2020. Part 2 deals on higher education largely, like HEIs, their norms, their regulations, their teacher student ratio, qualification of teachers, training of teacher and all. Then third part addresses other key areas of focus, where we can bring in a lot of industry involvement in uplifting the standards of the education institution. And fourth is making it happen. Like they have fixed the timeline. Within the timeline, each of the university, each of the institution should fall in line and would implement NEP 2020 guidelines. So NEP 2020 would ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifting lifelong learning opportunities for all by 2030. This is the target which has been set by NEP. We all know that government India, our Bharat, was very well known globally in the early days of our history, having been exhibited universities like Tanishq, Nalanda, Vikramshila, Vallabhi. Then we have been able to produce renowned scientists like Charaka, Susruta, Aryabhat in mathematics, Chanakya in economics, Patanjali. No, it is not moving. I'm not moving.
No, the thing is, it's
So
not
you're
present.
not able to change the slides?
No, I'm changing. Now I'm changing.
Okay, you're able to.
Yeah, I did. Just check. I had put it on hold, this particular presentation. I wanted to share some of the statistics. So, reimagining vocational education, before that, I want to share some of the things. Like present teacher students ratio, which is very, very large. Government of India wants to lower it down to 30:1 and to some 25:1 under this NEP. So reimagining vocational education, like Ministry of Education has already constituted National Committee for the Integration of Vocational Education, consisting of experts in vocational education and representative from across ministries in collaboration with industry to oversee this effort. Incubation centers will be set up in higher education institutions in partnership with renowned industries. Indian standards will be aligned with the international standard classification of occupations maintained by International Labour Organization. That means our graduates can very well fit into the international organizations and international need. They can meet the international industry needs also. The credit-based framework will also facilitate mobility across general and vocational education with great ease of to equip youths with skills and knowledge. So Indian knowledge systems, languages, culture and values, there would be a focus on literature and scientific vocabulary of Indian languages. Language faculty is to be given a lot of upliftment so that regional language, local language, teaching learning can happen. And research on languages is going to be main focus on this. So we in order to now depend on only English media as the instructional medium. So that's how currently the present 2021 All India Council for Technical Education already floated some of the engineering colleges in local languages, in regional languages. To name few, in Hindi they have come out with colleges, in Marathi they have come out with 5-6 colleges in Maharashtra, in Karnataka also few of the colleges have come forward to teach engineering in Kannada. Strengthening national institutes for promotion of classical languages and literature, then Indian Institute of Translation and Interpretations, IITI, to bring in.
Excuse me, sir. So you finished your seat? Or is it still there?
Going
It's
on.
still on.
Going.
Sir, are you on mute?
I can't.
It's that because
Yeah, where is?
they're not.
Where is? It's not there. I'm presenting, sharing presentation. Just a minute. This one.
So
Okay, should I continue? With this only I'll continue. Professor Negota, may I continue from this?
Please, sir. Please continue, sir.
Okay. Then we are going to focus on Indian Institute of Translation and Interpretation for bringing in some of the literature of other languages into regional language, local language, and getting into our language terminologies in global languages. Cultural awareness of our Indian knowledge system is also given a lot of thrust, promoting traditional arts, Lok Vidya, their own cards, HAI school or school complex to have artists in residence so that extended our early our teaching learning like yoga, music, art can happen. So World Economic Forum, that is 21st century skills needed are fundamental literacies is one, coupled with competencies and character qualities like literacy, numeracy, scientific literacy, ICT, literacy, that is information communication technology, financial literacy, cultural and civic literacy is one which comes under fundamental literacies, and then they are supported by critical thinking and problem solving, creativity amongst the student mass, communication, effective communication, and collaborative kind of learning where they can become good team members and team leaders in the days to come. Also, character qualities like curiosity, initiative, persistence, grit, adaptability, leadership, social and cultural kind of things. So mainly graduate attributes are amongst these only, that is, which is very much important for the students from engineering and professional bodies. That is, critical thinking is one, problem solving is the second. Where you come across, you should not look at your superiors to guide them, but you on your own should be confident enough to solve that problem and move forward. Computational thinking, in some of the critical issues, you should have this knowledge of computational thinking, effective thinking, social interaction, self-directed lifelong learning, as well as effective citizenship, ethics, environmental sustainability, and global perspectives. These are the attributes which some of them are required under the programs. So, use of technology has also been explicitly mentioned in this NEP, that is, education planning, teaching, learning, and assessment, administration and management, regulation, self disclosure, and human interface. That means a lot of ICT initiatives, digitization in teaching learning has to happen in teaching learning, in lab assignments, as well as in evaluation process, examination system, like increasing access to disadvantaged group. Divyang friendly education softwares need to be developed so that they also fall in line with the society. E-content in regional language is to be developed. That is and virtual labs in case of pandemic like COVID-19, students should not be deprived of lab assignments, hands-on experience. So virtual labs need to be developed. In that virtual lab, content is to be developed and it could be also shared with the students online so that they will be not deprived of hands-on learning, experiential learning kind of thing. National Education Technology Forum has been set up, and digitally equipping schools, teachers, and students is on the card. That means all these open source platform available should be learned by all the teachers, whether they are engineering, medicine, pharmacy, or even art science teachers, so that they'll effectively be able to handle teaching learning process. Major reforms in school education, universalization of early childhood care, that is, I said 5 years of that program which I read earlier. National mission on fundamental literacy and numeracy, that is coming on 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4, which is right now 10 plus 2 system, and here it is defined. So 5U already I said, 5U is on foundation, early childhood and care foundation. The next 3 years would be on preparedness. The next three would be on middle level education, and the last 4 year would be on secondary education. Curriculum to integrate 21st century skills, mathematical thinking, and scientific temper. No rigid separation between arts, science, between curricular, extracurricular activities, between more occasional and academic streams. They want to integrate all these things. For example, a biology student can opt arts course in his curriculum, or an engineer can opt a biology course in his curriculum and come out with interdisciplinary learning thing. So these kind of barrier they were removed in the NEP 22. Education of gifted children, gender inclusion fund they are creating, and then reduction in curriculum to core concepts. Content of curriculum is reduced, but that is converted into activity-based learning, and they are going to trigger the spirit of inquiry. So, occasional integration from classics onwards is going to happen. Again, these are the major reforms in school education. So I'll just go through very few. 360-degree holistic progress card of children would be given, tracking student progress for achieving learning outcomes. So this would be not output based, it could be outcome based education at school level also. National Assessment Center, a PARC is being slated online. National Testing Agency to offer common entrance exam for admissions at all levels, whether it is graduation level or post-graduation level. It would be NTA which would be conducting common entrance test. National Professional Standard for teachers is going to be set up for training the teachers and equipping them with the latest abreast knowledge. Book promotion policy and digital libraries is going to be boosted. Transparent online self-disclosure for public oversight and accountability. The outcomes of NEP would be universalization of new education system by 2020, then attaining fundamental learning, numeracy skills through national mission by 2025. They have set all these timelines and goals. 100% GER in preschool to secondary school by 2030. Then bring back 2 crore out of school children. The school dropouts, they want to bring them back and educate them at one or the other level. Teachers to be prepared for assessment reforms by 2023. Inclusive and equitable education system by 2030. Board exams to test core concepts and application of knowledge. Then every children will come out of school adapt at least one skill. He would be master in one skill. So that is the agenda. So common standards of learning in public private schools. So this was the committee which was headed by Dr. K. Kasturirangan, chairman of this committee with his team members. And would like to say, I would like to conclude my talk. Thank you, one and all. Professor Onnegowda, I'll stop sharing my screen.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. It was truly informative and extremely helpful. As you mentioned, the features of NAP 2020 and how it is an improvement. Thank you so much, sir.
Uh, I wish to thank my sincere thanks to our Honorable Vice Chancellor for giving an excellent overview on the national education policy. Thank you very much, sir.
Let's now have a
Well, thank you,
short
sir.
break and resume in 5 minutes.
Maybe C. Prasad sir is there. Can you continue, actually?
Sir, Honorable sir, shall I just try sharing my PPT? Yeah?
Yes, sir. Please, sir. Please. Please, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Please, sir. Yakandre adu, this is new thing, StreamYard.
That's what I was wondering.
I am conversant with Zoom and other.
Sir, now I would like to call
Thank you.
Rupa ma'am to introduce our speaker, Professor M Shivaprasad. Over to Rupa ma'am.
Is sharing what?
Sir, you were presenting this screen, sir. What you did was correct that time.
Sir, I would request Rupa ma'am to introduce our speaker, SM Shivaprasad, sir.
Okay, madam.
Nityashri, madam, can you please guide me through sharing this? Because as sir said, it's a new thing.
Sir,
So
you will have an option of share button over
yeah,
there,
I'll press the share button. Then I
and then the
say I
entire
want.
screen.
No, there are three options here. One is slide, video file, and share screen. So I'll press the share screen.
Share screen, sir.
Share screen. Okay, I pressed. Now it says okay. Now again it says share screen. Okay. Now again,
So you can click on this share screen button.
yeah.
Sir, your slide is visible, sir.
Sir, your slide is visible. Only you try with making it full screen
Okay.
PowerPoint. And now it is
Now it
visible.
is visible, sir.
Is it okay?
Full screen.
Yeah.
PowerPoint
Yes, sir,
presentation.
it is visible, sir.
Okay.
Visible,
Thank you.
visible.
Thank you. Okay. Let me just.
Good afternoon, one and all. I seek the blessings of His Holiness Sri Sri Shivaratri Deshikendra Mahaswamiji. It is my honor and privilege to introduce Professor M Shivaprasad sir, who is an eminent scientist. Presently, he is a director, Karnataka State Higher Education Academy, Dharwad, and also Professor, International Center for Material Science, Jawaharlal Nehru Center for Advanced Research, Scientific Research, Bangalore. Professionally, he started his professional career as CSIR Scientific Pool Officer, National Physical Laboratory, New Delhi in 1985, and a postdoctoral research, Indian Institute of Technology, Delhi, and University of Sussex, UK. And from 1985 to 2007, he was a scientist in National Physical Laboratory, New Delhi, Chief Scientist and Head, Surface Physics and Nanostructure Group. He has several publications in his credits, more than 300 plus in national and international journals. He has given 240 presentations in international and national conferences. He has presented 500 plus invited talks and 3 authored edited books. He has a visiting positions in several institutes like United Nations Fellow at National Bureau of Standards, to name a few. He has several awards in his credits. To name few, Young Scientist Award from the President of India in 1992, Honorable Doctorate DSc from VSK University, Bellary, CNR Rao Oration Award in the year 2010, Dr. Raja Ramanna Karnataka State Government Senior Scientist Award in 2013, and so on. He has several fellowships like Commonwealth Postdoctoral Fellowship of London, Boy Scout Fellowship of DST, Government of India, Rutgers University Visiting Researcher Fellowship, and he is a member for several professional bodies like Material Research Society of India, American Vacuum Society, and so on. His several accomplishments are there. Thank you very much, sir, for accepting our invitation to deliver a talk on India towards becoming a Vishwaguru. Over to you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, madam, for your kind and generous introduction. Okay, and sorry for interrupting in between. Actually, all those things have come by mistake, so I didn't want you to carry on a little bit longer. Another small request, and of course, I thank Honnegada sir for giving me this opportunity. And also, it was wonderful to see and listen to Professor Karjini, who is a very well accomplished administrator come engineer. And also thanks to Nityashri, who started this program very efficiently, and then Dr. Rupa, who sort of introduced me very well. Thank you very much. Again, friends, one small request is, of course, I request, it's very difficult for a teacher to speak without seeing any faces. So I request whoever is possible to keep switching on your videos, keep your videos on so that I can see some smiles and I'll know when to stop, right? When Nitya becomes a little bit sleepy, I can stop, right? So that so it's
Professor
nice.
Shivaprasad, you have to
Yes, sir.
excuse me because my video is not getting
I
activated. Some
understand.
problem
No,
is
no
this.
problem.
I
No
tried a
problem.
lot. Students
No
also
problem.
had come, but unfortunately,
Yes.
my system is not allowing this video to be on. Kindly excuse
No, no,
me.
it's okay, sir. Your presence itself is an honor. Thank
Okay,
you.
I am enjoying you all, but
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. And Annegada, sir, I know him for a long time. I'm one of his admirers, the ability of his administration and everything. So I'm glad that he's there on the show. Friends, again, let me start sharing my slide. I think, first of all, I should compliment Karjini, sir, for a very beautiful, exhaustive, and comprehensive talk about telling us all about NEP, which probably is a game changer for India. So that is what I want to speak today, is to say how this NEP, or the need for a game-changing plan for India, right? India needs to become, as again Professor Karjini said, we had an amazing past, right? We had we were the Vishwa Gurus. So let's see, and probably we lost out for some reason or the other, and probably it's an opportunity to come back into this. So I'll probably share my thoughts, my views on this, and I'll be very happy if there are some comments, discussions on this later. So let me start sharing my slide. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Can you see my slide, Nitya?
Yes, sir,
Yeah.
it is visible.
Okay, okay, thank you. Again, it's my most sincere pranamas and namaskaras to the great Swamijis of Suttur Mutt, because I am one of the beneficiaries of this, because my father was a poor student in the hostel of Suttur Mutt, and so we are always indebted to this great institution, and the blessings of the great Swamijis we get all the time. So starting with that, let me start about my talk of India towards becoming the Vishwa Guru. Okay, very important. Again, it's great to remember Maulana Abdul Kalam Azad, who has, Hunegowda sir explained all the wonderful things he did. But I like this comment of his statement of his, which says, he said that at that time his thought was educationists should build the capacities of the spirit of inquiry, creativity, entrepreneurial, and moral leadership among students and become their role model. I think, as Karjani said, this is again the aspiration of India and the NEP 2020, right? So let's look at this and how to make India towards a Vishwa Guru. Right. So, friends, we all remember about a little bit more than a year ago, this was a very deadly picture. We all see, we dreaded, and we were worried what happened, right? And at the same time, at this moment itself, while this fight was going inside the nation, there was a problem at the border because of our irresponsible neighbors. Okay, there were problems at the border. So people were fighting for us, right? People at the borders. There were warriors who were fighting for Indian lives, and then there were people who were fighting, health warriors who were fighting for us inside the nation. So it was a big war. Okay, last year was a terrible year for all of us. We all know we all lost so many of our dears and nears. Okay, we so many of our colleagues, so many of our friends, and it was a disaster year. So now, one question comes is, why did those warriors, the border warriors and the health warriors, fight for us? I remember a small anecdote in the early 1980s. America wanted to build this Hadron Collider. You remember the Hadron Collider, which ultimately invented discovered the so-called God particle, right? In around 2011. So this collider, it was a huge collider. It's an accelerator of a very large energy, and this was to be built. So when the CERN was building, America also wanted to build one Hadron Collider. So Professor Taylor, who was the director of the Fermi Lab, asked about $12 billion to build this Hadron Collider in America. Okay, but of course it was a very huge money in those days. Even now it's huge money. And so he was called to the U.S. Congress to explain why he required so much money, right? Why he required. So while the questions were going on, one of the congressmen asked Professor Taylor, can you tell how this project will help the defense of our nation? Okay, how this project is such a big project, it should help the defense of our nation. How will this project help the defense of our nation? Okay, what Professor Taylor answered was very beautiful, which I want to share with you. He said that, Mr. Congressman, this has nothing to do with the defense of our nation. This project has nothing to do with the defense of our nation. It is to make our nation worth defending for. It is to make our nation worth defending for. See, such a beautiful statement, right? So now, when our border warriors and health warriors were fighting for us, they were defending our lives. It means that we should have a nation which is worth defending. We cannot defend our illiteracy. We cannot defend our corruption. We cannot defend our ignorance. We cannot defend all these things, right? So unless there's something valuable in the nation, it is not worth defending. So that is a beautiful statement which inspired all of us. So friends, now that probably the third wave is not yet there, we are all again worried. So I again request all of the people who are watching here to be a little bit careful. Still don't ignore what is happening. The COVID can still come back. We know that we've seen the South African Omicron virus, which is again opening its dirty face. So let's all be careful. But very importantly, friends, let us assume that the third wave doesn't come and nothing happens and everything is destroyed. Now we need to rebuild the nation. So now the question is, this is a great opportunity. We rebuild the nation. Let us not build it the way it has been. Right? Let's rebuild it in a very new way. Maybe we can build it. We can reimagine the building of a nation, reimagine the future of India. Right? So who are the warriors who are going to rebuild and reimagine India? Okay, are the warriors who are going to fight for this? They are what I call as knowledge warriors, who are nothing but who are the teachers, who are the professors, who are the students, all the people in education. So education is going to become the most important part of rebuilding India, and that is the role which we all play. Probably all of us on this show are involved in this, and we are the knowledge warriors. That actually means that there is a huge responsibility on all of us. It is like a war. It is not a war to destroy or kill. It is a war to build a nation. It's a war against ignorance. It's a war against illiteracy. It's a war against poverty. So this kind of a war is now started. So now look at this. This is the graph I just want to show. I mean, I don't want to go into the details, but I just want to compare India with another comparable country, which is called China, because which has a similar population. It's very difficult to compare other countries, but India and China can be very well compared. Look at this. Somewhere around 1990, the GDP per capita was the same, right? The GDP per capita of India and China was the same. But ultimately, you see now we have also grown. Okay, in India has grown, but look at China. The China has really taken off. Huge acceleration. They have taken off. Now they are nearly 2 times the per capita GDP per person. Right? Amazing difference. Why did this happen? Okay, how did this happen? Is a challenge. So we need to think about this. Now, this is also related to this graph on the right side, which is actually the GER ratio of different nations. We all want our country to become one of the richest country in the world, the best country in the world. It's a natural desire. But look at it, my friends. As Karjini sir said, okay, our enrollment ratio is still less than 26%. But you look at these developed nations, they are about 95%, 90%. Amazing. So if we want to become number one, it is very important for us to increase our GER ratio from 26 to 95. It's not easy. As he also said, in the next 20 years, the NEP expects only 50% of GER. Even after 20 years, we are expecting 50% of GER. That means how far away we are from becoming a great nation, right? Please think about this. And if this has to happen, it has to happen only through education. Again, Karjini sir mentioned about NEP, talking about a 6% GDP, while we are less than 3% now. It's only about 2.68% right now. And China, for example, has about 6% of GDP from the government, and another 2.5% which comes from the industry, from the private players. That means 8.5% of the GDP goes for education, okay, in China, and for us it's less than 3%. I'm very glad that the government has thought of bringing in 6% of the GDP, which will be the game changer. Okay, let us hope that it happens very soon. Again, for science, we spend only 0.8% of our GDP for science in India, right? But China spends nearly 2.4%. That means about 3 times more than what we spend. So look at it. If education and science are not given priority in a nation, okay, we will not be able to become those leaders of the world or the number one country in the world. Okay, I don't want to go into the other graphs, which will take some time, but let me go. Let's look at it from time immemorial. Again, Karjini sir talked about the great ancient civilization India had. Not only us, right? There were many civilizations. There is ancient Mesopotamian civilization about nearly 4,000 years ago. The ancient Egyptian civilization about 3,000 years ago. Ancient India about 3,000 years ago. Okay, like that you have China, Israel, Rome, Greek, all sorts of Mayan civilization, medieval civilization. All civilizations happened in this world, right? In the history of the world. But the question, very interestingly, there is one book I'm sure some of you must have read, which is called as the Guns, Germs, and Steel. This is written by Jared Diamond. Jared Diamond is a evolutionary biologist and a science writer in America. There's a very nice story, Rupa Madam. Once, Jared Diamond went on a vacation to Mexico, and when he was then in Mexico, he was walking around on the beach. Okay, a small school teacher of Mexico came and told him, he asked him, introduced himself and asked him, who are you? He said, I'm an evolutionary biologist. I look at the evolution of system. Then that fellow said, I have one question in my mind. Okay, it is bothering me for a long time. Okay, maybe you can answer me this question. So Jared Diamond asked, what is this question? So young teacher told him, look, sir, I've heard about these ancient civilizations, which were doing wonderfully well, right? All were great. The Mesopotamian civilizations in the Middle East, the Egyptian civilization in Egypt, the Indian civilization, the Chinese civilization, the Greek, the Roman, the Mayan civilization, all were fantastic. They were all doing so well. And there was so much knowledge. Everything was there. But now, all these countries have become poor countries. Why is it? If they were so great, why did they become very poor? This is the question that young school teacher asked Jared Diamond. And Jared Diamond, it opened Jared Diamond's eyes. Jared Diamond says that the question was so profound that he actually cut short his holidays, went back to America, worked on this for 15 years, and then wrote this beautiful book called as Guns, Germs, and Steel. Okay, if you get an opportunity, please read this. It will really understand what civilizations are, how did they grow, the rise and fall of civilizations. Just like the rise and fall of the Roman Empire, we know that there is a rise and fall of civilizations and how it happens. This is very, very important. And you will understand one thing. One is, he says there are guns, there are germs, and there are steel. I did not understand germs when I read this book in the 1980s. But now after COVID, I realized how important germs are in deciding the civilization of a nation. Right? At that time, there was not enough science, there was not enough medicine, there was not enough support system. And that's why it used to destroy civilizations. Now, it still has destroyed, but still we are able to retrieve the systems, which is very important. But if you look at civilization, what do I mean by civilization? Civilization is only when there is education, right? So we all know all these civilizations, like for example, probably as the picture goes, the Mesopotamian civilization schools look like this. The Egyptian schools look like this. We had our own wonderful Gurukula system, which looked like this. Okay, and the schooling and a very different system. And then we had the Chinese schools, which look like this, probably, as far as the information goes. These are some beautiful things which happened in this civilization. So at the backbone of any civilization is education. But again, as Karjini sir said very nicely, okay, the important contribution of India, or I think the greatest contribution in India, was the number of universities we had. We established so many, especially under King Ashoka, right, or others. Okay, everything we established so many universities: the Nalanda, the Takshashila, the Vallabhi, Pushpagiri. I mean, Sompura, so many universities we established. What do we mean by universities? Universities is where there is universal information, right? And the information was universal, means it was not restricted to a region or a civilization. There was cross-civilization information which was flying from each other. People from here came there, went there. People from there came here. Like that, so much information was shared. That's why it's very difficult to identify where something originated. We talk about many concepts, and we think that, Mesopotamians will say, it originated here. Chinese will say it originated here. We'll say that it originated here. It was very difficult to decide because there was this cross-pollination of knowledge. And that is why these civilizations became very, very powerful at that time. Okay, so our pride is that we had probably they say there are about 14 very, very well-established universities in our country, which I think is a matter of great pride, shows how when we were Vishwagurus, how much importance we gave to education. Okay, friends, now let's look at it. Let's look at the civilizations in those days. Let us see at those days what could have been the professions. One, of course, we need food. Excuse me. One, of course, we need food. So agriculture was still the most important profession. Then there was hunting, because food was also coming from hunting. Then, of course, then you had potters, you had the craftsmen who were making your shoes, your dress. I mean, all the normal requirements of life. And then there was all small kingdoms, because very, very tiny, many kingdoms all over the place. This is not only in our civilization, this is true of all civilizations. And so there was a lot of fighting between civilizations. So another important profession was being a soldier. So the hunter, the farmer, the soldier, the craftsman were the main profession. So if you look at this this graph, I mean this pyramid, you can see here there were landless workers who were the highest population, then land-owning farmers, artisans, merchants. Then above that was smaller number of wealthy landowners and gentry. Above that were scholars and officials, which was even much smaller. And finally, at the top of this pyramid was the emperor and the imperial court. So you see, if you look at this, the kind of requirements they had at that time, where only a very few people needed formal education. So others got it by their family professions and traditions, right? If he was a carpenter, his son would be a carpenter. So his son would be a carpenter. So this, and he learned the profession from in his house. He learned it from his father, from what was happening from the childhood. He's watching that, so he started doing that profession. But only at the top of the pyramid, there were scholars and officials and the emperor and the imperial court. They wanted formal education because they were doing things which were beyond their own personal life experience. That is why formal education was necessary. And you saw all those institutions I showed earlier were focused on these few people who got the formal education. Everything changed when we had the Industrial Revolution 0.0. What we call as Industrial Revolution 0.0 happened when Gutenberg invented the printing press. The printing press invention was one of the greatest inventions of mankind, because the first machine which came, which was of course made for printing Bible and spreading it, etc., but it brought machines. It brought machines into the world. It changed the way we looked at the world, right? And this was in 1440. Now you remember, we had large printing presses with large number of manpower who were working on these. If you remember, some of you may remember, we had such printing. When printing was done, it used to be, you take a full letter, you typesetting, then making a mold, then printing, then bringing ink, etc. So it required a lot of manpower. But now look at the printing press. There is one person, okay, he puts something on the computer and everything is printed so beautifully, right? So this is what happens in a modern world. See, look at the huge labor which is required. Now you don't need labor, right? This was, I'm talking about Industrial Revolution 0.0 in the 15th century. 15th century, we needed manpower. We needed technical manpower, but now we don't need anymore. So now look at the Industrial Revolution, what is called as 1.0. This is the invention of the steam engine in the 18th century. When James Watt invented the steam engine, it created an opportunity for people to move from one place to the other, carry huge goods, huge size goods from one place to the other. And so there was a movement. The mobility of people increased. The average distance with which people can move increased by about nearly 100 times. That means a person in one place, say for example in France, started working in Germany. The people in Germany started working in England. So like that, there was a lot of movement in the European world. And again, huge machineries were set up. The industries grew. Look at the size of the industries when they were making these steam engines. There was no electricity yet. But look at the amazing industry with thousands of people who are working there. But now look at a locomotive engine. It has changed a lot. When you look at this locomotive engine of today, you will see very few people are there in the industry because of so much automation which has happened, right? So that is, the world has changed since the Industrial Revolution 1.0. Right. Now we look at another industrial revolution, which is called as Industrial Revolution 2.0, when Henry Ford, started manufacturing cars. It was the first manufacturing of car, and what he did was something called as a conveyor belt system, in the sense that, see, earlier it was only labor which was required. And once the labor was moving from one place to the other, they wanted certificates to show that they were educated. And that is how schools got established, right? But now you wanted technical expertise. Because what was happening in this, say, for example, conveyor belt system of car manufacturing, you would get specialists. Only one person will work on the carburetor, the second person will work on the wheel, somebody else will work on the steering wheel. I mean, somebody will work on the body, like that. The jobs were separated, and you need specialists in certain regions. And when you wanted specialists, then you needed special training. So you needed special schools, special ways of training them and certifying them. Somebody should give a certificate saying that if this fellow is qualified to do this job. So that certification process took place. You all remember, again, This is, I'm sure some of you have seen this beautiful movie called as The Modern Times by Charlie Chaplin. If you have not seen it, youngsters like Nityashree should see this. I'm sure she has not seen it. But very important that this picture it was a satire on the industrial mess which had created into the society. Okay, I'm sure all the people like Honnegada sir must have seen this, and he remembers this last picture, especially on the right side, which we cannot forget the expressions of Charlie Chaplin. He had so beautiful expressions on the machinization when he was supposed to eat food, okay, using a machine. Right. Coming back to this, so at that time, what it was called as Education 1.0. See, you see, Industrial Revolution 2.0, but our education was called 1.0. You look at this beautiful picture, right? What does this show? This boy, the school boy, has a hexagonal face. Okay, you could have a hexagonal face, you could have a square face, you could have a pentagon face, you could have a triangular face, right? So you see, oops, let me see if I can get a laser pointer. Yeah, you can see it. See, this fellow has a hexagonal face. This fellow probably has a square face. This fellow has a pentagon face, and this fellow has a triangular face, right? So I'm sure on the YouTube it's coming a little bit slow. So let me slow down what I'm saying. So you see here, this is a pentagonal face, a triangular face, etc. But what was school? This was the school. Okay, this was the school, and this is a teacher. This is a teacher. Okay, this is a teacher, and this is school. What is the teacher doing? He is putting these children through this schooling and turning everybody's face into a circular face, right? Because the requirement from the industry was a circular face, means everybody had to be trained in a certain way. This was the way the formal education happened. So that's why everybody was trained with the same syllabus, same examination system, same curriculum, same classrooms, etc., etc. This was an extremely old style of teaching, which unfortunately exists even now in our system. Right? We are also going like this. So in fact, if we don't, our face doesn't become round, we will be called as unintelligent or incapable. Right? So now I remember, friends, you all must be knowing that Einstein, okay, the greatest Einstein, probably the most intelligent man in the history of the universe, he was a very bad student in school. He was so bad that they didn't know. After 12th standard, nobody had an idea that he will do anything in life. In fact, a teacher tells his father that if this fellow does anything in life, I'll be very happy. Einstein was such a bad student. But though Einstein was such a bad student, okay, how did he become the great Einstein? For that itself, Einstein tells very beautifully. There's one very nice sentence by Einstein. I'm sure some of you must have read his autobiography. He tells that I was a fish. Okay, and the school wanted me to climb a tree. And all the time, because I couldn't climb the tree, a fish cannot climb the tree, but I felt I was stupid. Right? So he felt that I was stupid. But only after I came out of school, okay, I could think on my own. I could ask questions on my own. I did not have the restrictions of the examination or the competition of an examination. And that is why I could think freely and I could become Einstein. He says, I'm not a genius at all. I'm not at all a genius, but I'm passionately curious. He says, I'm passionately curious. I want to find out. So now our system, the Education 1.0, for example, which does exist in India even today, we are not made to become curious. We are only made to remember things, right? That is the unfortunate thing. So it's time for us to change. So now look at this car manufacturing industry. Okay, now, okay, without after this is called as the Industrial Revolution 3.0. There is no human being here. Toyota in one factory produces 46,000 cars every day. And our own Maruti, okay, in Faridabad produces 9,600 cars every day. It is because there are not many people. Everything is robotic. Everything is automatic. Everything is controlled by the computer. And that kind of a revolution which has taken in the industrialization has created different kinds of needs of people. Now you don't have people who needed the specific expertise. Now you want people who can use these kind of machines more effectively, right? So now, friends, I talked about the 18th century first generation, second generation, third generation, and now we have entered into the fourth generation of industrial revolution, which actually means controlled by the cloud, right? Controlled by the internet. The internet world is going to be a huge transformation in the future. So now, according to this, our education system should also change, right? It's very important for us to realize that our education system also has to change from education 1.0, 2.0, and 3.0. Okay. If we don't change the education system corresponding to the requirements of the industry, then we will be out of business, right? We will not be getting opportunities. We will not getting employment. Not only will not get employment, our country cannot grow. Our country cannot grow means our dream of becoming a Vishwaguru or becoming the number one in the world will not happen. So it's very important that we need to understand, we need to change from education 1.0 to 2.0 to 3.0. That I think is a terribly, terribly important thing. Okay, these are some of the important people who align the industry requirements with education. So the schooling system went on changing according to the requirements of the industrial requirements, how education went on changing, some of the great contributors to that. And this particular picture shows the difference between education 1.0, 2.0, and 3.0. Okay, it has not yet come on the screen, but let me see here. There is a chart. I don't want to go into the details of the chart, but tell you they are very different. And if you go on seeing the details, we'll understand that we are still in education 1.0. But the world requires education 3.0. When are we making this transition from 1.0 to 2.0 to 3.0 is the challenge. And that's why I said, amid all this COVID mess and the border problem, etc., when we were all desperate, came this beautiful concept of the new education policy. It gave us some hope that during this time, we could start of thinking of changing the world, reimagining India. And that is what happened with the new education policy. I'll come to that in a while, but this is what it is. See, now this is the cartoon to show what is education 3.0. See, education 3.0, you see here, now the teacher is not in the center of education. Right now, you see, for all of us, the teacher is the center of education, right? The students revolve around that. But now it's not like that. Education 3.0, the teacher is at the side. He is only a guide at the side. He is not at the center of it. Now the student is the center of education. So what do I mean by that, right? It actually means because when we were students, when we were young, we were students, the information came to us only from the teacher. There was no other source of information for us. So the teacher was the one who was giving every information to us. And for us, the teacher was the God. The teacher was the person who was giving everything we wanted because we had no other source of information. And little bit in the library and a teacher, nothing else. But now, friends, at that time, we used to talk very interestingly, Inaugural sir, we used to tell that this fellow was very intelligent. He had knowledge at the tips of his fingers. I did not understand what it meant. But now you see, now we know what a tip of finger because you can actually press a mobile phone and you can get all the information you require. So such a big transformation has taken that the information is available everywhere. Information is not restricted to the educational institutions. You don't learn only in the school or in the college. We learn everywhere. We can get the information wherever. I mean, when somebody says something quickly, you will mobile and see, Google and see what happens, right? So you can get the information. Information is freely available. The world information is available. You are connected with the whole world. You can easily contact a great expert in the field, maybe in Harvard or Cambridge. Okay, you don't have to sit here and ask your teacher. Okay, you can do it on your own. See, look at the kind of change that this is going to bring. Okay, so how soon should we adopt to this change is what it is, right? I mean, now the learner is no longer a learner. The learner also becomes a teacher. The teacher only becomes a guide for the collection of knowledge, of information. Now let's look at this. We all know that civilization. We all know different civilizations depend on the technology, especially on materials, right? We call it as a Stone Age, the ceramic age, the bronze age, the semiconductor age, the plastic age, now a lot of garbage. So many things are happening in this world because of technology which is changing. But very interestingly, something amazing things has happened, my friends, is to tell you 3 amazing technologies have come together. Probably never in the history of mankind have 3 amazing technologies come together. One is the nanotechnology, the other is the biotechnology, and the third is the artificial intelligence. Please note these 3. Nanotechnology, biotechnology, and artificial intelligence are going to become game changers in the next 10-15 years. Not much. In the next 10-15 years, this is going to change the way we look at the world. To give you one example, of this one, I just want to remind you, in the year 2019, July issue of Science is one of the most respected scientific journals in the world. Science and Nature are the two top journals. Out of that, this in Science, in July issue of Science, there is a paper by Cordio and Wood. Cordio is from Cambridge and Wood is from MIT in America. So a collaborative work. And the paper says, I'll just tell you share the title of that paper. The title said that it is the death of death by the year 2045. You understand? Death of death by the year 2045. That means man or woman, whatever, will be able to conquer death in the next 20-25 years. In the next 25 years, natural death will not be there. You can die by disease, you can die by killing each other, or you can die by suicide. But the natural death may not happen. So Nityashree, who is probably about 25, I don't know how old are you, Nityashree? Okay, maybe about 20.
I'm 20, sir.
Yeah, 20-year-old. So she may not die at all, right? I will die because 2045, but Nityashree may not die at all. She can celebrate her 200th birthday, 300, get married when she is 500 years old, have children when you're 800 years old. So many opportunities are there because we can conquer death. This is not science fiction, my friends. What I'm talking is not science fiction. It is real science. We now understand what is aging. Okay, we know what is aging. It is about the telomeres. The life of the telomeres, a biology teacher should be able to tell you better. The DNAs are capped with telomeres. And those telomeres are very, very important in deciding how we age. So if we can find out the gene which affects the telomeres and engineer the gene, okay, you can live forever. And of course, this is a combination of nanotechnology, biotechnology, and artificial intelligence. Right now, these three fields are very, very, are still in the nascent stage. They are in the very early stage. It is in the research stage. But once these three come together, when nanotechnology synergizes with biotechnology and artificial intelligence, it is going to be the game changer, and which I don't see it not happening in the next less than 10 years. About 10 years, the world we see, everything we see will be very different. Now the question is, are our institutions, are the institutions in India, are the teachers in India, okay, are ready for this? Are the governments for India are ready for this change? If we don't change, okay, if we don't change, then what will happen to the future of India? You know that India has this huge demographic dividend. Now 68% of the people in India are less than 32 years of age. Huge. China is struggling from old age people. But we are having an opportunity of having a huge number of young people. The youth power, okay, the youth power of Nityashree and her friends is extremely strong. Okay, it is there. Now the question is, if we don't prepare a system which can utilize this youth power, if we use this system, the youth power, this will become a great nation. But if we can't utilize this power, okay, this power of the youth, it can become an extremely dangerous nation, right? Because youth power cannot keep quiet. So we need to employ every child. We need to empower every child. We need to skill every child with the requirements of the future. And that, I think, is the main cause of how we are going to become a Vishwaguru. So through education. So education and science will become the most important tools of development for the future of a nation. Again, this all changed in India when the new economic policy started in about 1991. Okay, about 1991, we started what is called as the LPG, the liberalization, privatization, and globalization, which happened. See, this globalization, the word, okay, all are important, but I just want to tell you, like JSS is a private university, which was possible earlier. We did not see this kind of wonderful private universities. So we had only government was into education, then privatization taken, and liberalization took place. There's so many things, but globalization is the key word here. Once we said that we want to connect with trade, with education, with everything into the world, we wanted to globalize. That means for educational institutions, it means that an American company can come and put a school or a college in India, or an Indian institution can start a school or college in Germany. I mean, everything was possible. How do you do this, right? Just like what happened in the Industrial Revolution. Now we want to become global. When we want to start an institution abroad or have a foreign institution in India, we need to think, how do we certify it? How do we certify knowing the standard of each institution so that we can get an equivalence with the institution to start up? So this is what we started with NAC. You know, we all NAC accreditation started because of this measurement, which was necessary for globalization. And now, once it is there, now we need to think about education, right? So that is why there was a change in the new education policy. Like again, Karjini said very, very nicely, he said many things started in 1948 itself. The Education Commission was set up by S. Radhakrishnan, our first President of India. Okay, not first, the President of India at that time. Okay, he was, I think, the Vice President of India. Rajendra Prasad was the first President of India. Then in 1952-53, Secondary Education Commission was set up. Okay, Muralidhar was responsible. Then very, very interesting and critical was in 1965. Around 1965, there was an Education Commission which was set up under the leadership of Professor D.S. Kothari. D.S. Kothari was a physicist. He was also the chairman of the UGC, what was called very famously known as the Kothari Commission. I'm sure all of us remember the Kothari Commission. And that led to the formation of the first NEP, which was implemented in 1968. And after that, many things changed. Again, in 1976, the Constitutional Amendment was made to give the powers and make reforms in education. Then in 1986, the second National Education Policy started. And then in 1992, okay, P.V. Narasimha Rao's government did an plan of action to revise the national new education policy. But then in 2016, after a long gap after that, okay, in 2016, the TSR Subramaniam Committee started addressing these challenges of education. It started understanding the new phenomena of education, which has led to the Kasturi Rangan's committee report, which was explained so nicely by Dr. Karjini. Okay, this led to the third new education policy, which was approved in 2020, and we call it as, it is not a new education policy, but it is a national education policy which started in 2020. Again, I don't want to go into the details because the timeline, you see, it is not that when you implement it says that it will start working from today. The timeline itself says that the completion of the whole process of new education policy, which is all listed by Dr. Karjini, okay, you can see here, will be completed by 2040. Okay, 2040, still there is so much time, right? So by the time we have to bring in all the changes which are necessary. We are so fortunate that, okay, so what is it? Again, as listed earlier, okay, there are graduate attributes. What do we want in higher education? What do you want a graduate to become when he becomes a graduate? What is more important is not to get that certificate or get that marks. Okay, it is not about marks. It is the ability to think independently in the subject of expertise. Whatever subject you have studied, in that the student should be able to think independently. Second, the ability to communicate effectively. You may be thinking on your own, but if you don't know how to communicate, you will not learn more, or you will not be able to convince yourself of the ideas. So communication, effective communication is another very important factor. After that, the student should learn that it is continuous development, not that I finished my degree, everything is over. Education is not over. In fact, life begins after you're getting the degree, right? So to develop continuously, what we call as lifelong learning is a very, very important aspect. But more importantly, again, among all three, to think independently, communicate effectively, and to develop continuously, the other thing is to act responsibly. An educated person or a graduate should act very responsibly in the society. When I say responsibly, it consists of professional ethics, it consists of moral ethics, it consists of social ethics. So how do we bring in social ethics, moral ethics, and professional ethics and teach them to the student will be the most important. The students have to learn this. Again, now students don't have to depend on teachers to learn everything. They can learn something on their own, as it is shown in the new education policy. So these are the wonderful graduate attributes which every student has to learn. For that, you need academia, you need society and community, then you need a work and a career, etc. Become a consequence of this. Work and job is not the aim, right? The aims are these four aims: to think independently, to communicate effectively, to develop continuously, and to act responsibly. And this is what we have to learn during our education. So once we do that, then we develop these attributes. You learn adaptability. You can go to any system, okay, any system, and you should become adaptable. And not only that, you have to develop the confidence, the self-confidence, which comes because of your knowledge, because of your moral strength, because of your ability to do things, that you will develop the self-confidence which is necessary. Then third, creativity. Creativity is one of the most loosely used words. Creativity is something very, very interesting. Only when you are capable, you all have all the attributes, you can become creative. I'll show that in a while. And then ultimately, my friends, more important is credibility. Credibility means a graduate, when he makes a sentence, he speaks something, it should have some value. People should respect it. It should become a credible statement. And then only people will give you that value which is necessary. And that credibility has to be developed. And then, of course, there are many kind of research attributes. More details are there, but I'll not go into that detail. But just tell you, education is not only about passing examination or learning the subject you have. It is about developing a holistic, 3D development of your life. And that, I think, is the most important thing of education. Right now, education is so boring, right? Sitting in a class is terribly boring. Even I have suffered education for many years when I was a student. But how to make it interesting, right? And so here, look, the teacher in the bottom in the higher education is telling, well, my fellow friends, I'm sure my lecture has made you think. Okay. It has never made us think. Our education does not make us think, right? It only makes us feel bored. Education makes us feel terrible, right? We have to go home and study. We have to go for tuition. We have to go for tuitions. We have to buy hard things, everything. So education is such a difficult thing. So now there is new teachers, the new generation, or the new education policy thinks, he's telling now there must be a better way of education. There must be a better way of teaching. I should do something. The teacher says, now I need to learn. I need to learn how I need to educate. So there is something importance of pedagogy. Pedagogy is a very important aspect of teaching. How do I teach which subject to whom, in where and when and time? So in the temporal and spatial and knowledge domains, you need to have the particular technique. The techniques of pedagogy is very, very important, both for the teacher and for the student. So how do you do this? So now teacher, as I said, is no longer a sage on stage. Teacher cannot stand on the stage and start teaching and giving sermons and expect the students to learn everything he's telling. Okay, he becomes only a guide on the side. Okay, the teacher is a guide on the side. The information, the knowledge is collected by the students. He just guides them so that they are on the right track. See, like mobile phone, you have this something wonderful computer in your hand, a powerful computer in your hand, which is called as a mobile phone. But you see, if there is no guide like a teacher, we will use the mobile phone for all useless things, right? Or wrong things or bad things. But once there is a guide on the side and tells you how to use the mobile to develop your own personality, okay, develop your own capabilities, get all those graduate attributes from it, I think that is what the role of a teacher is. Guide them, because students are very smart. They are very good, very smart. But we need to inspire them. We need to guide them. We need to make them learn on their own, study on their own, get inspired by the subject, and come out with their own knowledge and accumulation. I think that is very important. So from a traditional classroom, it is time for us to go into a flipped classroom. If we really want to become the Vishwagurus of this world, it is time for us to change the conventional methods of education. Of course, there is a large gamut of knowledge on this. Education, linking education, the science of education, what is called as cognitive neurology, etc., gives us a lot of issues here, but I'll not go into the detail, but just tell you this very important slide. You see this, friends, okay, you can see here. Let me go to the next slide. I'll wait for it until it comes up. Not this one, this one. See here, every person is equipped with three things. One is the head, the other is the heart, and the third is the hands. The three H's of us, right? The head, the heart, and the hands. The head is the one which thinks and stores information. The heart is the one which feels information, right? And the hand is the one which does whatever has to be done. So please understand, it is not only about thinking, understanding, it is about feeling it. And once, if we don't feel it, we will not be able to do it. So, and then to do it, we require the hands. Okay, that means somehow our education has to link the head, the heart, and the hands. So how do we do education which links the head and the heart and the hands, which is called as cognitive domain, affective domain, and psychomotor domains? I think that is very important to transform the education the way it happens. So we have this famous Bloom's learning levels. You see here, I'll show you, this is one of the most celebrated education methods, the hierarchy of learning. Okay, see here, you see here. See, Bloom's, of course, this is debated, a lot of controversies are there, etc., at the research level. But we can understand the first level of learning is remembering, the second level is understanding, the third is applying that knowledge, okay, and then analyzing, then evaluating, and then creating. See these levels, okay, very, very difficult to understand, right? You have to put in a lot of thought to understand where it is. And look at our education system. Let me tell you with due responsibility, let me tell you, our education system, even in the best of the institutions, has not crossed level 2. Our education system is still at level 2, but we need to reach level 6, which is creativity. To create that, we need to change drastically the education system, which has to be done if we really want to become the best in the world. This is the Bloom sector. So this needs to understand. See, if you want to understand how we learn, we need to understand how we think, or how we understand, how we learn. And that is what related to cognitive neurology. I'll not go into the details, but it is a beautiful science. It is a very beautiful science which shows how neurons make connections, how information is created, how knowledge is there, how do we go along the 6 Bloom's levels of technology is all decided what happens in our brain. And let me tell you, my friends, all of us have 80 billion neurons in our brain, about more than 80 billion neurons. That means whether it's Einstein or Shivaprasad or Nityasri, everybody has about 80 billion neurons. That means we all have the hardware which is necessary. The hardware which is necessary to become an Einstein or a Madame Curie is there with all of us. Now it is only the question of what is the software we are going to load so that we become Einstein or we become an Osama bin Laden. We need to make this decision by telling what is the kind of software we are going to put. And who is going to put the software? It is going to happen in educational institutions. I'll cut this. Another interesting thing, friends, is there are not, along with these neurons, there is something called as happy chemicals, or these are called as neurotransmitters. And these play a very big role in how we grasp things, understand things, how we react to things. So this is the emotional part of it. The brain is the thinking part, and this is the heart part. Actually, it all happens in the brain, but still we think that heart has some different meaning. So the serotonin, dopamine, oxytocin, endorphins, how these are related, and how these are related to education. And this is called as cognitive neurology, and that is a very important field which is happening. I request some of you to read about this. Then only we'll understand how to teach, how to learn, and how to become very effective in life. So these are some things very important. So now this is something I call this as a learning curve. See, what is on the x-axis is the effort we put towards learning. It may be teaching, it may be reading, it may be any effort we put on that. And on the y-axis is knowledge. As we put effort, we all know that knowledge increases. If we put more effort, we'll put knowledge, right? So we think the relationship is linear, like this green curve you see here, green line you see here, we think it is linear. That means 1/5, half of the time we put the effort, then half knowledge will come. Full percent we put, then full percent will come, knowledge will come. But it is not like that. In reality, okay, what happens is this curve is not linear. This is called as the neural network time series. I'm sure a lot of engineers will know about this. Okay, this is called as neural network time series. So the curve is actually like this. You see this? This is a beautiful curve which shows that almost 50% of your effort initially will not produce any knowledge. It is about accumulation of information. And only when you have enough accumulation of information and those clusters in the brain connect with each other, you can actually form this beautiful connection and give you this huge learning. And that is what is very important, that we should understand that teaching is a sigmoidal curve. Okay, learning is a sigmoidal graph. So unless we realize this, then we will not know how to teach and will not know how to learn. So we need to make our pedagogy in such a way that it forms this kind of a curve. Otherwise, our knowledge will be only about 10 to 15%, as you can see from the line I'm going to draw now in the bottom. You see this line which draws is telling you, if we don't do this, our knowledge, see, you sit in a class, let me tell you, in a lecture mode, we learn only about 10 to 15%, right? So because, things happen so fast that you are not able to learn. But if the teacher teaches in the sigmoidal method, then we can get 100% knowledge in each class. And we don't have to go home and study. We can go and enjoy our youth. We can go paint, we can dance, we can do art, we can do social service, we can do amazing things are there, which is very essential for the youth if we can do this kind of a learning inside a classroom. Okay, now this leads to another important thing. This is a Howard Gardner's theory of multiple intelligence. See, the concept of IQ, which we all believed happened earlier, doesn't exist anymore. There is nothing called as one single IQ or intelligence, right? That's why I told you, Einstein said that he was a fish, means his IQ was different. And the school requested a different IQ, which was to climb a tree. And a fish cannot climb a tree. It will die if it comes out of water. So that's what different people have different kinds of intelligences. This was proposed by Howard Gardner from the University of Harvard. Okay, he is an amazing celebrity who has given this theory. Again, this is also contested, argued, debated. That's a different issue. But what he wants to tell very nicely is there are 8 kinds of intelligences. There are 8 kinds of intelligences in all of us. And In that, only one or two of them are dominant. Rest are there, but they are at a lower level. So each person has a different kind of intelligence. One may be a naturalist, some may be a spatial learner or a visual learner, some may be a linguistic learner who learns by talking or reading. And then there's an intrapersonal learner, means who can sit alone and think about it and learn. Then there are interpersonal, where you discuss with others and learn. Then you have logical or mathematical learners. Then you have musical, who want rhythmic learning and a timbre learning. And then body kinesthetics, who want action to learn. So each person is different and have different way of learning. So now the question is, if this is true, then we cannot teach only in one mode. We have to teach and learn in different modes depending on our capability or the ability of the students. And that, I think, is a real challenge. So in every classroom we go, there is a binomial distribution of the ability of teachers, of the students, ability of students. So if the distribution is binomial, I cannot take a median of that and start teaching there. That means nobody will benefit out of that. So what I need to do is, if this capability of students is binomial, then it's important that I also do a binomial teaching. So how do we do binomial teaching? What is understanding? This understanding is very important both for the students and the teacher. In the earlier teacher-centric education system, teacher needed to know now. Now with the student-centric education system, the students also have to know what they are. They have to identify what kind of learner I am, what kind of intelligence I have. How can I learn? What is the best way for me to learn, and adopt that and learn and become creative? So you look at this learning pyramid, it says that lecture mode gives us only 5% of the knowledge. 90% of the time we go through the lecture mode and it gives only 5% of the knowledge. Reading gives you 10% of the knowledge. Audio-visual systems gives you only 20% of the knowledge. Demonstrations give you 30% of the knowledge. Discussions give you 50% of the knowledge. And teaching others gives you 90% of the knowledge. So if you read, you don't learn much, right? You get only 10% of the knowledge. But if you try to teach somebody, okay, you get 90% of the knowledge. So teaching should become a part of the student learning process. It's not only the teacher who teaches, but the student should also teach each other. And how do we develop a pedagogy to make this happen is very important. Okay, right. So now, see, again, there is something else. We talk about interdisciplinary. See, look, there are so many kinds of disciplinaries. The intradisciplinary, the multidisciplinary, the cross-disciplinary, the interdisciplinary, and the transdisciplinary. All these techniques have to be utilized in the classroom in the way we learn. It is not necessary only in the classroom, but wherever we learn, we have to adopt all these techniques. All of them have a different power. They have a different way of giving us the knowledge which is necessary to accumulate. Okay, so friends, this was, I think, the turning point. As I said, the new education policy is a great opportunity. All the details have been told beautifully by Karjini sir, so I won't go into the details, but just understand this is again the structure, how it happens, etc. Which you all mentioned and which you all are aware of it. But very interestingly, you have to use this opportunity. Okay. Other things which happen with this are other reforms are the credit transfers, the academic back credits, the teaching universities, the research institutes, the autonomy of the colleges, etc., which was all explained in the previous talk. So friends, with all these opportunities, we have a change. We can change. Okay. That I think, so what we use is what is called as the outcome-based education. Earlier up to now, it was we go and take a degree, and after the degree, you start looking, what opportunities I get. But now it is very important for us to decide what we want to do and get educated in that process, and for the teachers to educate the children and in that process. So once we understand this concept of outcome-based education and how we can bring it into our education system, we can attain those outcomes. So outcome-based education is a common sense in the reverse order, in the sense that you have to first decide the outcome of what you want to become or what you want to do and what you like, and then find out how to get the education which is necessary. That kind of a freedom is available. I don't want to go into details, but ultimately this new education policy, in one sentence we can say, is that the student decides what to study, when to study, where to study, and how to study. You understand? The student decides what to study, when to study, where to study, and how to study. Of course, students are not aware of all this, right? They can't decide because they are not competent enough to decide. And that is where the role of teacher comes. So the whole thing is, my friends, the teachers have to guide them and tell them where to study, what to study, depending on the individual and the capability of the individual. So this, I call, is the dawn of student-centric education. Up to now, we have gone through the teacher-centric education, but now it is a time for us to change to a student-centric education. So friends, with all this, last day, I want to tell you, if you want to become that Vishwaguru Bharata, okay, through education, through knowledge, okay, it's very, very important for all of us to adopt this new education policy in the right spirit. It is about the right spirit. It is not about the rules and regulations. It is about the right spirit to make our students amazing people, so that our country in the next 10, 15 years becomes the Vishwaguru, which teaches the whole world how to live and how to go. It is the idea of, it is not about knowledge. It is, when you add knowledge, okay, when you add information and intelligence, it becomes knowledge, right? When you add ethics and values to your knowledge, it becomes wisdom. So only when we have the wisdom, we can become Vishwagurus. So the idea is, friends, let's not use this opportunity and try to become those Vishwagurus which we all aspire to become. Okay. With here, I thank you, and if there are any questions, I would be happy to interact. Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir, for your valuable insights and for explaining how education is a powerful weapon to bring positive change across the world. And we hope that our youth overtakes India towards becoming the Vishwaguru. I thank you once again, sir, and it was
Thank
truly
you.
enlightening for all of us. Thank you,
Thank you, Dityashree. Yeah.
Thank you,
sir. Now I
Shivaprasad,
would
sir. It was an excellent talk. This is the fourth time I think I'm listening your talk, sir.
Yes.
Every moment, every sentence I enjoy. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much, sir. And
Thank
you
you.
have enlightened us how the modern education system should be and the importance of pedagogy in the education 3.0.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
I also thank you, Prof. Shivaprasad, for
Thank,
sparing your valuable time and
thank you, sir.
taking a long journey of
So,
NEP, how it has been evolved and how it's going to be helpful for
thank you, sir.
the whole of the country.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
now I wish to call upon Samanvi to propose a vote of thanks.
Good evening, everyone, honorable professors and my dear friends. It's a great honor for me to propose vote of thanks for this event and express my gratitude to all who have helped us in making this seminar a successful. Firstly, I would like to thank His Holiness Lingaikia, Jagadguru Dr. Shri Shiv Rajendra Mahaswamiji Gadavaru and Shri uh, Shivaratri Deshikendra Swami Gadavaru, the visionaries who have given us such a great foundation of knowledge through their institution and continuously providing for more and more students. I'd like to express my heartfelt thanks to our respected and distinguished speakers, Dr. Vilas V. Karjani, Vice Chancellor, JSSSTU, and Professor S. M. Shivaprasad, Director, Karnataka State Higher Education Academy, Dharwad, and Professor ICMS, for their informative and interesting talk on national education policy. Thank you, sir. I'd like to express our deep gratitude to management, our registrar, Dr. S. A. Dhanraj, Principal, Dr. S. B. Kivade, and Dean of Research and President of IIC-JSSSTU, Dr. H. Honegowda, and all the faculty for their presence in the seminar and their constant support for our council. I also thank our backbone of the council, our beloved IIC convener, Dr. S. Rupa, for her insistent guidance and moral support. I would like to thank my fellow coordinators who have ensured the success of this event. Last but not the least, I'd like to thank the attendees for their enthusiastic participation in the seminar. We hope to see you in the future events of IIC. Once again, I thank you all for your cordial cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Vanilo.
Thank you, Vanagada, sir, for giving us the opportunity.
I would like to mention that actually I'm very happy to say that we have kickstarted our Institution Innovation Council for this academic year with the two wonderful blessings of academicians, our distinguished Vice Chancellor and distinguished scientist, Professor S. M. Shivaprasad. Thank you so much for all of you. And also my sincere thanks to Rupa Madam and also Nityashree and all the, Institution Innovation Council members. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. We are concluding this session. Thank you so much.